Friends, believe it or not, it was way back in September of 2014 when you and I drove the then new Yaguchi-san special, the Lexus RCF, complete with a V8. And we did so on a racetrack. And while we were in New York, we took the opportunity to drive its brother with a V6. Well, now fast forward to 2016 and things are all about turbos nowadays. So take a wild guess what Yaguchi-san dropped into the RC. Now, the last time you and I had a Lexus parked here, it had 8 cylinders, 467 horsepower, and it sounded like driving through the Austrian Alps to the soundtrack of Antonio Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Just let that image cascade through your brain. I don't care if it's summer or winter, just let it wash over you. Okay, now back to reality. So here we have a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder direct injected gasoline engine. It is turbocharged. The turbocharger is twin scroll. That translates to a compression ratio of 10:1. That is a bit lower than the V6 in the RC350. Output is 241 horsepower, comes in at a relatively aggressive 5,800 RPM, but the torque, now that's interesting. It's 258 pound-feet of torque. So what is that, about 20 pound-feet of torque lower than the V6, but it comes in at 1,650 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 4,400 RPM. So this is a trend we're seeing in these 2-liter 4-cylinders, whether it's this one or the Mercedes. And actually the Mercedes has almost the identical numbers in terms of output, although I think that's a 2.1 in that case. Anyway, let's put that aside. That is connected to an 8-speed automatic torque converter. So yeah, this is changes from that vision of Antonio Vivaldi and Österreich and Yaguchi-san, but now we're in California and we have a 4-cylinder. So let's see how it works here. Okay, so being we have 2 less cylinders but a turbocharger, we need to break this out into 3 personalities. We're gonna start this in the bluff celery mode. Eco, not go too fast here, so let's slow down a little bit. Slight incline, put our foot into it. Downshift. It makes power. I wouldn't call it super quick, but it's no slouch either. Actually, once it develops power, you do have to scrub some power off. Let's put the celery mode aside. Let's go to the regular mode. Actually, no, regular mode is pushing down. So now we're in regular mode. Let's go around this wonderful declining radius turn here and put our foot into it. Actually, a great opportunity to really try going up a hill. And now actually the turbocharger, that's the most I've ever seen it work in the entire week I've been driving. Went up to 1.5 bar, but plenty of power. Like if I didn't hear the engine, if I didn't hear it working so hard, I'd be like, that's a good size V6, that seems to work okay. Okay, so as the road starts to straighten up just a little bit, let's get out of this bluff celery mode and the basic mode, and let's go over to the right to the first sport mode. Come around this turn, and then let's put our foot into it coming out of it. A little bit more responsive. Now, okay, I could believe this is a twin scroll turbo here. And once again, it went to 1.5 bar, which I find interesting. I've pushed this thing pretty hard, and it really hasn't done much of that. Maybe, I guess, because we're going uphill. Anyway, so now that we get to kind of the top of the hill here, we've been more than fair to this, the basic mode, the regular sport mode, and even the bluff celery mode. So let's go all the way over to the right, Sport Plus, put our foot into it a bit, especially coming out of this nice turn here. Put our foot into it again. You know what? There's actually, we need to slow down because there's polizei around here. There's 2 things I've noticed about this. Number one, this 4-cylinder turbo, the way they've got this thing set up, more than enough power. Like, if you didn't hear it, you'd say, yeah, I could believe it's a V6. But here's the more important and frankly to me more surprising thing. Do you remember when we drove that C300 in southern Spain? The power works like it does here. There's plenty of power that comes out of a similar, actually it's They're both 241 horsepower. But the way this delivers power, I don't have that feeling of, the engine's just the wrong match. Like the personality of the engine here matches the personality of the car, where the personality of the engine in the Mercedes, not a good match. Where here, it's like, I'm not sitting here and saying, I think I'd rather have the V6. So in the tech review, you and I went through a menagerie of bits that have come together to create this car. Things like larger wheels, different structural bits from 3 different other Lexi, if that's the term, and glue, believe it or not. But there was a cliffhanger I left you guys with. There's something about driving dynamics that I find very strange here, and it's that. Well, those are there because it says F here, but it's that, the dampers behind the wheels and the brakes. You see, they're adjustable, but there's one problem with that adjustment. And that would be this knob control big ass button thing right here. You see, we discussed in the tech review that there are adjustable dampers in the F Sport, which this is. We also discussed different throttle mapping just previously, but the struggle is you cannot separate those things. The theme in the car world as of late, especially in vehicles of this echelon, is you can change the throttle mapping independent of the dampers, independent of the steering. And the catch in the Lexus world is that does not exist. So like, for example, we are in the blah mode right now, which means eco on the throttle mapping and the softest setting on the dampers, which is all fine and good for most people who would own one of these things, but that's not you and I. So let's say for the sake of discussion, I want to switch over to the sport mode, forget about the basic mode. The dampers firm up just a bit, but so does the throttle mapping. And the same thing happens again here. So let's go into Sport Plus, put our foot into it a bit more, go around these turns a bit more aggressively. And what happens is, now this is a fun car to drive. People like, please don't try this at all. I'm gonna put my foot into this thing. There's virtually no, I don't wanna say there's no roll in the back, but there's just a little bit of lean that is rear focused. Now remember, the pairing of this engine with this car changes the weight distribution, and you feel that more here than you do in the regular V6 because there is a lot less weight over the front axle of this car. So it's, what is it, 42 in the front, something like that. So that's why you get the extra lean, and you could use the extra, I guess, support of the stiffer damper setup. But now let's try this and go back down to the eco mode. So full disclosure here, I don't feel entirely confident driving this thing in this damper setting because it's all over the road in the basic setting. Where what I've been doing all week is driving it in Sport Plus, not because I want the engine to be like super fast. I'm trying to win like stoplight Grand Prix. I'm just trying to get the car to be more composed around town. And in the Sport Plus setting, it's awesome, like really good. So what I'd love to have is like the benefit of the composure of the Sport Plus, which is not just beneficial out here, but that composure works around town, and yes, around turns like these. Actually, let's go to Sport Plus while we're talking about it. But I'd also like to pick up some of that fuel economy, which is, frankly, the reason why this car exists. And now for something completely different, a straw poll. So who's excited for the forthcoming Lexus LC? So basically, a Lexus with 2 doors, but one cooler than that one. Let me know in the comments below, or better yet, hit me up via my social media. MotoManTV all in word, MotoManTV all in word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Okay, so let's stay in Sport Plus here, but bring it down a couple of notches, because we need to discuss 2 things. Number one, yes, we agree the reason this car exists is to get around certain tax challenges around the world, but put aside the bigger picture. What is it? Think globally, act locally. Well, for me, I'm a cheapskate. I would love to have better fuel economy. And what you don't see when the cameras are not on, when I have like those AMGs or even like McLarens, that kind of stuff, when I'm scooting around town in those things, I usually keep them in the lowest throttle mode, meaning like the eco mode, but then up the dampers. And the whole point is I don't need to be winning stoplight Grand Prix when I'm just driving to and from the studio. Where here you don't really have that option, but even though I have been in Sport Plus 100% of the time, maybe when I drove away from Lexus HQ on the very first day for probably the very first hour, I had it on the regular mode, the eco mode, but it was like, no, you got to change the composure here. But even with that, I'm 22.7 mpg average, and as you can see, I have not been easy on this car. That's pretty impressive for a 3,700 pound sports coupe that I could never sit here and tell you leaves you wanting more power. So that's point number one. Point number two, the interior. I know I have kind of belabored this between previous Lexus episodes and the tech review of this, but just living with this, and now I've lived with this interior, what is it? There was the IS, that 350 that you and I drove, that F-Sport with Mean Gene. Then there was the RCF, then there was the RC 350 F-Sport, and now this. That means about 3 weeks of really getting to know the user experience of this interior. And still, my only complaint is how ridiculously small that screen is. Actually, a second complaint, and that would be, I don't know what's going on with Lexus and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It is shocking to me that they have not implemented either one of these in any one of their cars yet. So, an open letter to Lexus, edge to edge. And how about some more connectivity with my fancy phones? Because everybody that I see that owns a Lexus, they are, let's call them, more connected than the folks that drive other cars. And that's not just guys, it's guys and gals. So in summary, what do we got? An answer to a question nobody has asked. I know I haven't asked this question. Is there a credible alternative to a V6 sport coupe or like a V6 luxury sporty coupe? And now the answer is a resounding yes. Like, I would go so far as to saying that the surgery of going from RC 350 to RC 200 is more successful than the surgery of going from whatever Mercedes is calling the V6 equipped C to the C300. And we did that one kind of backwards because we drove the C300 first. And if I'm honest, the issue there was not enough power. It just, the engine wasn't supple enough for a sport luxury coupe. Where here, there is no want for more suppleness. Like, it is as smooth as the V6. It delivers power very similar to the V6. Actually, where it's different is an improvement because the torque comes in at a lower engine speed. So I would have a hard time saying no to the V6 and choosing this, but I would also have a hard time saying no to the rear wheel steering, which I guess this would turn into like an open question to Lexus. Maybe you do bundle the rear wheel steering to the RC200T, or maybe make some oddball, like maybe mature WRX version of this for people who, like, the wife said you can't have a WRX anymore, but you can still have a fun car, and so that would be it. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm gonna turn this around to you guys and leave you with a very specific question. So this works. The Mercedes sort of works, but my question to you is, which one would you choose? Would you choose the Lexus Coupe, or would you choose the Mercedes Coupe, or is there another luxury sport coupe like an ATS that you would choose? And don't just tell me which one you would choose. I want to know specifically why and what derivation. Like me, it would have to be an ATS-V because it's a stick and I live in Los Angeles, California. Those are the answers I'm looking for. I'm looking for the choice, the why, and what region of the world you hail from. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I want to leave you with two things. Number one, make sure you download our fancy new mobile application, which you can download for free at Apple iTunes and Google Play. And did you know that we're live on 5 international airlines? And number two, I want to leave you with a fun fact. So today has been an incredibly frustrating shoot, shall we say. Our secret, or I should say our top secret outdoor MotoMan studio has been invaded with tourists from Italy, from Spain, from France, and many planes, more than usual, especially prop planes above. So this took probably 10 times as long to shoot as normal episodes. Anyway, maybe a boring fun fact, but it's still a fun fact. Until I see you next time, bis später.